quite quick.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
I confirm my appearance on behalf of Advocate Jiba. The name is Z Majavu, spelled M-A-J-A-V-U for the record. And I'm
Thank you,
assisted
Mr.
by Ms.
Majavu. I
Makuta.
think your voice is very soft. You might wish to raise it.
Let me try again,
Yes.
Chair. I confirm my appearance on behalf of Advocate Jiba. My name is Zola Majavu, spelled M-A-J-A-V-U for the record, and I'm assisted by my associate, Ms. Makuta, surname spelled M-A-K-U-T-A.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Chair.
Is there another appearance?
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
I am Julie Ann Harwood. I confirm my appearance on behalf of Mr. Agreasy in this matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Majavu.
Thank you, Chair. Might I request the Chair's liberty to indulgence, rather, to hand up a bundle which I have prepared for ease of reference. I have already shared it with my learned friends on behalf of the evidence leaders as well as Mr. Agreasy.
Yes,
It is purely for practical purposes because as at yesterday, I had not received an index from the Commission.
Yes.
But my colleagues indicated that they had received an index, and I would request that we rather work off that one. It's a consolidation of the application and necessary documentation. The last two items is basically the letter in which the Chair had requested us to indicate whether or not there's an objection. At the time, the Chair was minded to hear this in chambers, and we did not object.
Yes,
And the
yes.
subsequent document at the bottom thereof is simply
Yes.
today's notice of set down.
Yes.
Other than that, the documents that form part of that bundle are
the
pretty
same.
much the same and a
Yes.
common cause between the parties.
Yes. No, initially I thought I should just deal with it in chambers if nobody has a problem. But I subsequently thought it might be good if we deal with it in an open hearing.
And that
So I'm glad that everyone has been able to come, even though we didn't give a long notice.
that's pretty much in order. It's in the nature of the business that we are
Yes.
dealing with, and we take no issue with that.
Yes, yes.
Chair.
Obviously, obviously I've read the papers, and I just want to mention to you what my prima facie thinking is, so that you don't have to deal with all kinds of matters that are really not of my concern. My concern is that Mr. Agreasy, as far as I can see in his affidavit, main affidavit, does say that he has no personal knowledge that any bribes were paid to Ms. Jiba. All he is saying is that he interacted with Mr. Mti, and he and Mr. Gavin Watson, they interacted with Mr. Mti, and Mr. Mti told him certain things, including that some of the money was destined for Ms. Jiba. So, obviously, Ms. Jiba also doesn't know whether Mr. Mti said to Mr. Agreasy what Mr. Agreasy says he said to him. Just like Mr. Agreasy doesn't know whether indeed Mr. Mti had any discussions with Ms. Jiba and whether he handed over any monies. So my difficulty is that One, I don't see how Ms. Jiba can cross-examine Mr. Ajibi about Mr. Agrizi about those payments in any way that assists the commission, nor can she, as I see it, cross-examine him any effectively or in any way that assists the commission about whether indeed Mr. Mti told Mr. Agrizi what Mr. Agrizi says he told him. So I have that difficulty. The investigations of the commission are ongoing, and I believe that Mr. Mti will come to the commission in due course and give his evidence. If, for example, he says, yes, I did say what Mr. Agrizi says I said about Miss Jiba, and indeed I did hand over some monies to Miss Jiba, it seems to me that that is the person that maybe could be a good candidate for Ms. Jiba's cross-examination in a way that could assist the commission. So there are those concerns, but obviously that doesn't affect the other part of what the application is about, namely she would like leave to give heavy evidence herself and say that she never accepted or received any money from Busasa or Mr. Mti. That stands on a different footing, even if Mr. Agrizi doesn't know whether money was paid to her, I would be inclined to say, well, let her come and say, I never got any money from Busasa or from Mr. Mti, So I don't have a problem with that part. I just have a problem with the part for cross-examination. So that's where my concern is.
Chair, firstly, thank you for those apt observations. One had anticipated that that is what would possibly trouble the chair.
Yes.
And I will attempt to deal with those concerns and perhaps put a different spin to it, to the extent that really what one seeks to do is to preserve one's client's integrity. And that is the starting point. And I take comfort in the fact that right at the initial stages of the commencement of this proceeding, amongst others, Chair, you indicated that this is about the pursuit of truth, and this is also anchored on the rule of law with less adherence to formalism. But it could not be that parties' rights can be, compromised or prejudiced at the altar of expediency. With that said, let me attempt to answer the concerns in two parts. Firstly, we would not be presumptuous and assume that in the course of business, the Commission would in fact call Mr. Mti, and whether or not Mr. Mti would oblige accordingly. We are here on the back of a Rule 33 notice that was served on our client, and it is that which prompted us to come. And in the self-same notice, it indicated the various rights to which our client could avail herself. The first part was obviously to take issue with the allegations made by Mr. Agrizi through his mouth in an open commission for all and sundry to watch him and hear him. The second aspect to the right, about which I will spend less time, is saying to the extent that my client wants to test the truthfulness or otherwise of what Mr. Agrizi himself says on affidavit and repeated in an open commission, she would like to test that. But over and above that, she is not arrogant enough to say, I want to cross-examine Mr. Agrizi, but I myself do not want to be cross-examined. That was really the point of departure. On the affidavit, which form part of the Rule 33, I'm the first to concede that whatever Mr. Agrizi says is largely hearsay. He repeated it in an open commission. We responded substantively with Ms. Jiba's version, to which he had an opportunity to respond or to reply, which he did, and he reasserted the hearsay evidence on which his initial submissions were based. And to come closer to the point that, Chair, you are making is we issued an invitation to him, having now read his second affidavit, so to speak. The first one, let's call it the first affidavit because that was what was attached to the Rule 33. Upon us bringing a substantive application, the evidence leaders, rightly so, gave him a copy of what Advocate Jiba had to say. He then replied with a further affidavit, the second affidavit. And from the gleaning thereof, we realized that this entire process might even be obviated for the reasons that, Chair, you've rightly observed. And we issued an invitation, and that invitation, for want of a better word, would be contained in item 7, which is paginated pages on our bundle 40 through to 42. It is basically a letter wherein we say, look, we've read what Mr. Agrizi has to say. This is all hearsay. And we are inviting him to retract that in an open forum where he made those allegations. Had that been made, we wouldn't be here. But that invitation was not accepted. So we had to follow through with the application that we believe we rightly made. And that is the point. The second issue is with regard to her testimony in person. She had taken the view that, look, I've given my version. It is not disputed in any material way by Mr. Agrizi himself. So I don't really think that there's a need for me to even go ahead and testify, unless other persons who may implicate me more directly may come to the commission in the fullness of time, which is beyond her control. And we came here on the back of that, and that is the understanding. Why we believe that you are partially correct with respect, Chair, in saying perhaps there is little utility that may be derived in the robust cross-examination of a man who says, I don't have personal knowledge. I said what I said because other people told me so. But that may well be the case. But it is the manner in which those were made in public in this forum that we believe that it causes our client serious societal prejudice. The reputational damage as a result of what Mr. Agrizi said continues unabated to date. And it is that mischief which she sought to deal with, even on a limited basis. Even if Mr. Agrizi were to come and say openly before the world that I have no personal knowledge, I only conveyed that which I heard from other people, we would have been happy with that and leave it at that, Chair. And obviously, we are also mindful of the fact that whatever we do and say must be aimed at assisting the Commission. But the corollary also applies. The collateral damage that was done while people rightly or wrongly believed they were being of assistance to the Commission, sight cannot be lost of that. And it may appear to be minutiae, but it is a matter of central importance for my client to say, Mr. Agrizi accused me. He asserted certain facts. Even in his second affidavit, he still says, I deny that I implicated her erroneously. He is not taking the view that, look, it is what it is, and I'm happy to accept that I might have been misinformed myself. It may well be that under cross-examination, he may give better context that may better assist the Commission in terms of what is it that made him assert as facts that which he has asserted, with specific reference to Advocate Jiba. So it is a matter of sufficient importance, goes to the core of her own constitutional rights. Just as much as Mr. Agrizi was within his rights to come here and assist the Commission and implicate others, I hold no brief for others, I hold a brief for Advocate Jiba, implicate her in the manner that he did openly. You see, Chair, What is unfortunate about this is the fact that at the time when these allegations were made, she was a serious holder of a very key constitutional office, which unfortunately, as fate had it, and it has nothing to do with you, Chair, but at the time when these allegations were made, there was already a similar process which was established precisely to look into her fitness to hold office. And the allegations that Mr. Grizzly made, if found to be true, had a direct impact on her fitness to hold office, and was an invitation which was issued to all and sundry. And as fate had it, Chair, a day or so before that inquiry was to commence, what Mr. Agrizi was due to say here had already been leaked to the media. We took the judge in that inquiry into confidence and said, Judge, to the extent that these are allegations that you might have read about over the weekend, we admit that they fall on all fours with your terms of reference. We're placing it on record so that in the fullness of time, it may well be put as evidence before you, and then we can deal with it at that forum. In fairness to Justice Mukhoro, she acknowledged that it is not evidence before her, but it could not just be ignored as if it didn't happen. Evidence was then placed before that inquiry with the assistance of this commission, and arrangements were then made for Mr. Agrizi to come and testify before the Mukhoro inquiry, at which their credibility or otherwise would have been tested there in that particular forum. Mr. Agrizi's lawyers are sitting to my left. An agreement was made that he would testify. We penciled in dates, and on the eve thereof, he had a Damascus Road experience and decided that no, he is not going to subject himself to that process because he is scared that he might incriminate himself. Unlike you, Chair, the Mukhoro inquiry did not see it with the force of compulsion. So when he said, no, I'm not coming, we all had to lick our wounds and accept that it is what it is, hoping that he would at the very least be amenable to coming back to this commission at which those allegations were made, and then we can deal with them subject to your directions. We accepted it on that basis that we still have another alternative remedy at which these issues, which are of public importance, can then be tested. It is against that background that we would persist with our request, even on that narrow basis, because what Mr. Agrizi has done with respect, and I cast no aspersions on my colleagues on behalf of the evidence leaders. They shared with us what he had to say on Advocate Jiba's affidavit. We then said, look, if the man can say this is just hearsay, we would have accepted that and possibly withdrawn that part of our application or dealt with it differently. Now we're sitting in a situation where that affidavit again, where he restates that this is, hearsay, it was done between us, it was not done publicly. And that is where my client's difficulty would be. We're not suggesting that we should use this as a forum to ventilate her personal feelings, but it is the essence of what was said here publicly by Mr. Agrizi that we believe that we are entitled to cross-examine him on, even on that very limited and narrow basis. However, if the chair is inclined to say, look, reserve your client's rights to deal with Mr. Agrizi as well as Mr. Mti and any other in relation to that which Mr. Agrizi relays as second or third hand knowledge, that may well be another practical way of dealing with it. But I would have been remiss if I hadn't stated categorically what really irks my client with regard to this conduct by Mr. Agrizi.
Well, Mr. Majav, I think that you have addressed issues very pertinently and very usefully, if I may add. I think we are not far apart. With regard to what Mr. Agrizi said to the commission when he gave evidence and in his statement, anybody who was listening and anybody who reads this statement will know that Mr. Agrizi didn't say and doesn't say that I have personal knowledge of money being paid to Ms. Jiba by Busasa or Mr. MT handing over money. That all he is saying is, according to Mr. MT, in effect, some of the money that we were handing over to him was destined to Ms. Jiba. And I don't know whether he goes to the extent of saying Mr. MT said he was paying it over or not, but certainly he says that MT said part of the money was money he was going to hand over. And he makes it clear he was never anywhere where he saw it being handed over. I accept that even that being said in a public hearing is not something that anyone would like to be said about them. Yeah, I accept that. But of course, you know, in a forum such as this, some of the things that are said will be hearsay. The rules are not as strict as in a court of law, but we must always be sensitive, and I think we try to be sensitive all the time to the things that are being said by other people about other people. So my inclination is that insofar as payment of money is concerned, my inclination is to dismiss the application to cross-examine, or if we think that might be better, to postpone it and deal with it maybe when other witnesses might have come forward. But I certainly intend to grant Ms. Jiba leave to give evidence if she wants to in regard to any allegation, even if it's a hearsay allegation, that she may have received bribes. But it may be that her evidence may be more conveniently heard when other witnesses such as Mr. MT have given evidence, so that then she can deal with everything. Or she might decide that there is no need for her to give evidence. If, for example, Mr. MT said, one, I never said what Mr. Agrizi said, I said to him. Two, I never paid any money over to Ms. Jiba for bribes. But it's a decision she can take later on. But I'm simply saying that in regard to that one, I don't have a problem granting leave. I do have concerns about this other one, and I'm thinking I'm inclined to either dismiss it now, or say let's postpone it and deal with it once other witnesses have come forward and we have heard what they say. I don't know what your submissions might be on that.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, it is not only about the payment or receipt of bribes that Mr. Agrizi lays at the door of Advocate Jiba, and more sensitively on account of her position in the National Prosecuting Authority. He also accuses her of obstruction of justice because he makes allegations that she somehow leaked sensitive information relating to the Bosasa investigations. So that's a self-standing criticism again, which is placed on a higher footing, I submit, because if the person who is supposed to be prosecuting, not necessarily personally, but who is in that office, then dishes out information that may tend to undermine that prosecution, that's a serious matter. So that's a second issue. And thirdly, you see, Chair, ordinarily, I would have no hesitation agreeing with the inclination that you are expressing at this stage, because it is sensible. But the difficulty here is if you have regard, and I'll just invite Chair to journey with me to his second affidavit, and you will see in there, he is seeking to bolster.
Yes, I saw that. Actually, I meant to raise that with you.
Further,
Yes.
so it is not something that we can just gloss over and say, on the one hand, he says, no, it's hearsay, blah, blah, blah. But when he comes back the second time around, he even amplifies that which he says might have amplified his thinking or the inference that he may have rightly or wrongly arrived at. And if we had left that unchallenged, it would not be open to us later to say, yeah, but with regard to the bribes, it's in the pocket. Nobody understands him to have said he has personal knowledge of that, but he put it out there. But let's park that aside. What about the documents? He goes chapter and verse about the documents and how he believes that, in fact, he asserts that she would have had access to these documents, trying to draw a correlation in saying that which Mti said was how they received the documents must be reasonably possibly true, because look at this. He introduces the issue of the Mercedes-Benz for the first time. But with all of that said, Chair, I will conclude by indicating what my stance is on the prima facie inclination. But you see, Chair, the difficulty that we are going to have, we are here on account of a specific Rule 33. If we had not dealt with it timeously and took the stance that let's await everybody else to come and testify, we're going to tread into dangerous seas.
Yeah,
So,
no, I agree.
Pragmatically, Chair, we had to be seen to be respecting that invitation by you to say, here are these allegations. And at the time when that invitation was made, it was clear even then that we're dealing with hearsay evidence. So we couldn't say, on a mere reading of this affidavit, anybody can see that he doesn't say that. But it was a serious allegation that we had to deal with.
Yes.
Then to the point, Chair, I would rather you do not dismiss now.
Yes.
We've made the point.
Yes.
Let this application perhaps
Yes.
stand over
Yes.
to when everybody else that may potentially corroborate Mr. Greasy
Yes.
has either done that or
Yes.
disabused themselves of that.
Yeah.
And then we can then come back and say, Chair, now that Mr. Mti, for example, or Mr. Watson has now had their say,
Yes.
this is what our inclination is, so that I do not leave my client high and dry and
Yes.
close all these doors for him. It would have been irresponsible
Yes.
for us not to have approached you, but there is
Yes.
absolutely nothing sensibly and legally wrong with that prima facie inclination. With that qualification, Chair, that our client's rights should remain reserved, and let us deal with it on the basis that in the fullness of time, we'll still come back, because we now know, as the Chair has observed, that at least he is relying on hearsay evidence. He is not asserting it personally. To the extent that he seems to do so in his second affidavit, my client's rights remain reserved. We'll have no difficulty abiding that type of order, Chair.
Yes. No, I think that's in order. I would be inclined to do that. I doubt that anybody has any problem with that. So I think that, and I also need to just say that nothing that I have said should be construed as criticism for the fact that you filed an application for leave to cross-examine Mr. Chiba.
Mr. Greasy.
Mr. Greasy. I'm sorry, Mr. Greasy. There is no criticism at all for that. And you had to respond to the Rule 33 notice in a way that you believed was correct, and I think many people would have responded the way you did. So I don't think there is a problem with it. It's just that once I have to decide whether to grant leave or not, I have to consider all of these matters, and we then take it from there. But the point you have made with regard to what you have referred to as the defeating the ends of justice may need closer examination than the allegation about whether Ms. Jiba was paid bribes or not. So it might need closer examination next time when we look at the matter.
Chair, then as a parting shot, purely for context, and I raise this because it was contained in the second affidavit by Mr. Agrizi.
Yes.
In the quest for the pursuit of truth.
Yes.
I would humbly urge, and without being prescriptive on the investigators on how they do their job.
Yes.
To also pay closer scrutiny to these new allegations that he amplifies in his second affidavit, because that is also what could have potentially, bedeviled the waters, so to speak, because you are an MPA official. First, you are accused of a bribe, then you are called a snake, and then new issues are introduced after you have played open cards with the commission. It also deals with the circumstances pertaining to the flow of documents. It's a very central issue because in his replying affidavit, and Chair, you can look at it at your own convenience.
I have looked at it actually, yes.
He keeps referring to either Mti, Lipinka. There is also a conjunctive and a disjunctive and or. And that is where my client gets drawn in.
Yes.
And it is something that I am flagging now
Yes.
to say when we do come back, we're not going to take it lying down.
Yes,
Because
yes.
it does cast aspersions on her good integrity. But we leave it at that, and I'm happy with the direction that Chair, you and I have debated.
Yes.
It does make sense.
Yes. I must say that with regard to the matter that Mr. Agrizi raises in what you call the second affidavit, what is that now? With regard to the matter that Mr. Agrizi raises for the first time in what you call the second affidavit, I did take note of it when I was looking at this affidavit. I have actually directed that an investigation should be conducted into it. More information should be obtained as to it, because, as you say, if it were true, it could be seen as bolstering the other allegations. So there would be investigations, because in regard to that one, he seems to be speaking more from personal knowledge than with regard to the other allegations. So that one may well also stand on a different footing. I saw that you wrote a letter to say it's hearsay, blah, 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 blah. But I have said it should be investigated, and obviously you would be contacted if there is more that comes out. And then your client can give her version, and then when we deal with the matter next time, it may be that even if I were to say in regard to the allegations of bribery, I don't grant leave to cross-examine Mr. Agrizi, but in regard to that one, I may well grant leave. But it's something we would discuss at that stage.
That's fair, Chair. And
Yes.
for avoidance of doubt, my client has emphatically instructed me to place on record that she has absolutely no difficulty cooperating with the commission, and she actually welcomes that type of investigation, so that when she does respond, it's also not on a piecemeal basis.
Yes,
It is not of assistance either to her or to the commission. And the Chair should also note that even with regard to this particular Rule 33 notice, I place it on record simply to demonstrate the point. She was given a truncated notice. However, the investigators and perhaps with the evidence leaders explained to her why it was necessary to give her a shortened notice, and an explanation that she accepted and nevertheless cooperated with everybody. So it should not be seen as if she is shying away from dealing with these things. We're merely asserting her rights, and it is something that I'm duty bound to do, and also be guided by what is pragmatic. And for that, I'm grateful, Chair. Unless there are any other issues, that would be where I propose to leave it.
No, there are no other issues, Mr. Majavu, save that I do want to say that I appreciate the very constructive approach you have adopted in presenting your argument and in protecting your client's rights without in any way making it difficult for the commission to do its job. I think you struck that balance very well. So I'm grateful for that as well. We see a lot of that among practitioners who come before the commission, but there are exceptions where we don't see that. So, so thank you very much.
I've been well trained. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Let me hear Council representing Mr. Agrizi, whether she has any objection to what we have tentatively agreed should happen. Yes. Have you
Morning,
got any
Chair.
difficulty with what I'm inclined to do, with which Mr. Majavu has no problem?
No, thus far we don't have any issues with it.
Yes.
My main submissions today were going to relate to the allegations of the hearsay evidence and the fact that in the event that Mr. Mti is actually called, it would no longer be hearsay evidence because
Yeah.
obviously he'd confirm it.
Yes.
I was further just going to make the submission that in the event that he isn't called and he doesn't actually give the evidence and it remains hearsay evidence, in terms of the Commission's rules, I believe it's Rule 6.1, the Commission is still entitled to accept evidence which is not normally admissible in an ordinary court, which obviously would constitute hearsay evidence. It would just be this Commission's prerogative to attach as much weight as it deems fit to the evidence that was tendered.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So there is no problem from your side.
No, it's just with
Yes.
regards to the allegation of Ms. Jiba being referred to as Snake. In Mr. Agrizi's testimony that was actually offered in front of this commission, he explained that it wasn't any sort of a derogative nickname. It was just a code name that was given, and he actually explained what Mr. Mti said.
Well, it might be a code name, but it's a code name that nobody would like to be associated with. So that doesn't really help.
Yes, he
But
explained the
it was a
reason
code
behind it.
name, and Mr. Majavu has indicated, and Ms. Jiba has indicated that she takes offense to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
The last point I would just like to make is that Mr. Agrizi has emphatically said that he would be happy to abide by any ruling that this commission makes in this regard.
Yes.
And also he further just confirms that the evidence that he has tendered was, for the most part, told to him. He didn't have personal knowledge of it. So to cross-examine someone who doesn't have personal knowledge of what might have transpired might take this commission just on a bit of a detour. It might waste a bit of time.
Yes.
Again, as Chair mentioned earlier, the actual person to be answering these questions would probably be Mr. Mti or Watson.
Okay. No.
Other than that, I have no
Thank you.
further submissions.
Thank you.
Is there anything else the Chair wishes I address?
Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pretorius, I guess you have nothing to say.
Yes, save Chair, that because in the fullness of time, direct or circumstantial evidence may assist in asserting the truth of the essential dispute about the payment or receipt of money, no order should be made which should exclude the possibility of a renewed application for cross-examination by Ms. Jiba, even of Mr. Agrizi, because of the circumstantial nature, for example, the delay in prosecution, the receipt of documents, and the like.
Yes, no, that's fine. The application won't need to be renewed because it's not going to be dismissed. So it will simply be had at a later stage, maybe with or without supplementary papers, depending on what's going to happen.
In short, the possibility of a necessity to cross-examine Mr. Greasy may arise in the future.
Yeah, the situation might be different when we look at it.
Yes. Thank you, Chair.
We are not going to
Nothing further to add.
dismiss it. Thank you. Having had argument on behalf of Ms. Jiba, the order I make in this matter is that Ms. Jiba's application for leave to cross-examine Mr. Greasy is postponed sine die and may be set down at a later stage when other witnesses have given evidence relating to Busasa. And at that stage, as is always the case, notice will be given to all parties concerned. And the application is therefore postponed sine die. Thank you very much. So we are done with that. I think we'll take an adjournment to allow the team that is going to lead the evidence of the next witness in the Estina matter to get everybody ready for that. Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
may I then take it that we are accordingly excused? We're
You
done
are
for the
excused.
day.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll adjourn for 10 minutes. We adjourn. We are supposed to have resumed about 25 past 10, and we didn't do so because I needed to have a meeting with the legal team on various witnesses. So to make up for that as far as we can, we are not going to take the tea break. We'll run through until 1 o'clock. Yes, Ms. Kabashe.
Thank you, and morning again, Chairman.
Good
Chairman,
morning.
we had originally intended to call 2 witnesses today. With your leave, we are asking that we only call 1 witness because of some technical issues and matters that we would like to discuss with a second witness, just to be sure that the material that is presented is in fact the material he wants to have presented
Yes.
to you. There's a little bit of a technical glitch there, Chairman.
Yeah.
So we ask that we only lead the evidence of 1 witness today, and
Yes.
with the other witness, we'll reschedule when he returns, and by that time, I think we'll have resolved what I really think are technical issues that must be
Yes.
resolved, because he's more comfortable with that.
No, that's fine. We'll do this. We'll do that. Let's deal with 1 witness for today.
Thank you, as it pleases you.
Thank you.
Chairman. Ms. Buthelezi will be leading the evidence of the next witness.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair.
Yes, Ms. Buthelezi.
Chair, my witness for today is Mr. Muremi. Mr. Muremi is the former municipal manager for Pumelela Municipality, where the Estina Dairy Farm was located. May I ask that this witness be sworn in?
Yes. Please administer the oath or affirmation.
Please state your full names for the record.
Tekwaitile Moses Moremi.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No?
Do you consider the oath to be binding on your conscience?
Yes?
Do you swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, you may proceed.
Chair, Mr. Muremi has given us an affidavit that was given to the chair yesterday. He has now gave us a supplementary statement, which has also been added to the bundle.
Yes. Do you want this bundle to be admitted and marked?
Yes, it's Exhibit HH12.
The file containing the statement of Mr. Moremi will be marked Exhibit WH12. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Muremi, there is a bundle HH12 in front of you. If you turn below the number 1, do you confirm that the document that appears is the affidavit that you made for the commission?
Yes, Chair?
Yes. And if you go further backwards, below the big number 2, under the divider, and do you confirm that is the supplementary statement that you made today?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Butcher, as you said, if he went backwards, and I think to get to divider number 2, he had to go forward, not backwards.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chair, yes.
Okay.
But do you confirm that is the statement that is marked Exhibit HH12 from pages 1 until 4 is the statement that you made today.
Yes, I
It's
confirm, Chair.
stated on page 4.
Yes, I confirm, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Moremi, would you please then give us your employment history within the Free State government?
Thank you, Chair. On the 15th of January 2011, I joined the municipality, Phumelela local municipality, as the Chief Financial Officer. Before then, I was working for the banking institution called ABSA, and I was the regional manager who was responsible for the portfolio in the Free State province. And then on the 1st of May 2012, I was fortunate, Chair, and I was appointed as the municipal manager of Phumelela local municipality. And that coincided with the period when the Freddie Integrated Dairy Project was, when it was started to be implemented. And then I later then resigned and joined the Free State Provincial Treasury as the Chief Director, which is the position that I'm currently holding now.
Yes, and when did you start in that position?
I started on the 17th of February 2014.
Thank you. Mr. Moremi, would you please give us your qualifications, your highest qualifications?
My highest qualification is BCom Accounting. I also do have a diploma in Human Resource Management and quite a number of certificates, including the certificates of minimum competence, which is the requirement from National Treasury for anybody that is working for a municipality to have that particular certificate.
Thank you. Chair, for the purposes of leading Mr. Moremi's evidence, I will go through both his original affidavit and the supplementary, because some of the information that he gives on the original runs over to the supplementary.
You will refer to both
I'll refer
simultaneously.
simultaneously.
That's
yes.
fine.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Moremi, in your supplementary statement, you give us a brief history about the ownership of this granularist farm that is in Friede. Would you please give us that history?
Thank you, Chair. When I joined the municipality in 2011 as a Chief Financial Officer, what was expected of me was to make it a point, and those roles and responsibilities are clearly defined in Section 81 of the Municipal Finance Management Act, is to make sure that we account for all the assets, expenditure, and revenue of the municipality. So when I was going through the asset register of the municipality that time, I then noticed that the municipality owns a farm called Granolast. That farm was acquired around 1893. And I must indicate, Chair, that the town Friede and the township Thembaliche are also in that particular farm. The farm is measuring 4,439, and that is the total.
Hectares.
Hectares, yeah.
Yes.
By that time, I noticed that the farm was then leased on a 99-year agreement to the Granolast Boerdery Trust. Chair, that particular Granolast Boerdery Trust was, according to the records that I've seen, was established in 1993. And it was established through the councillors by that time, during that period of the transitional local council. The councillors by that time, those are the ones who actually established that particular trust. So it was actually operating as a trust for the community by that time. But in 1993, then this entity was then established, just a year before the democratic dispensation. And council by that time then took a resolution to then lease this particular farm for a period of 99 years. And that 99 years was from 1993. And in that farm, it was the livestock, the farming equipment, and everything was there.
Would that have been an all-white council at that time?
It was all white councillors, Chair.
Yes, okay.
So when I started requesting financial information, the audited because I just joined the municipality in 2011. When I start asking because it was a municipal entity, asking for the audited financial statements and the records from the accountant then, I find it very difficult to get those particular records because I had to make it a point that we account for the revenue from that particular farm because it is the municipality's farm. So I had some difficulties there getting the audited financial statement to an extent that, because then I was pursuing it, to an extent that the trustees, it was during that 2011, instead of giving me the audited financial statement, they then decided to sell the cattle and the equipment. We were not part of that particular auction, and later then dissolved the trust. So I even requested and said, then I have the audited financial statement up until the dissolution of the trust. I could not get them. And even when I left in 2014, there were no financial statement audited for that particular trust. So there was absolutely no accounting records for that.
Let me just understand. Was the trust created by the council?
Yes,
In other
Chair.
words, it was created by the council.
It was created by council.
There would have been a resolution of council saying a trust must be created for this and that purpose.
Yes, Chair.
And the trustees, how were they identified or selected?
Trustees, Chair, were councillors of that municipality at that time.
At that time?
Yeah. Those councillors were then the trustees of this particular trust.
But as you understood I guess at some stage you got, well, you would have got hold of the deed of trust. Did the first trustees have to cease to be trustees when they ceased to be councillors and then others would take over? Or was the position that those who were the first trustees just continued even when they were no longer councillors?
Chair, let me place it on record that those are some of the difficulties that I actually encountered because I did request for the trust deed, but I couldn't find any record, the same as the financial statement. So I couldn't understand exactly what happened subsequent to those councillors ceasing to be then councillors after 1994.
Yes, you didn't approach the master of the High Court because a copy, well, the original actually would, that's where it would be.
I didn't share, but I think if one can still go through the records of the municipality, we might be able to get the
because
trust deed.
every trust gets registered with the master of the High Court in the particular province or division, and he or she is the one who issues letters of executorship, which gives powers to the trustees to act as trustees. Without the letters of executorship from the master of the High Court, they don't have power to do anything. So that's where you go if you can't get it anywhere, and then a copy can be found. But the long and short of it is that you ask for a deed of a copy, you are not you are not given, and instead the livestock was sold and the trust was dissolved.
Yes, Chair. There was an amount of approximately 8 million that was actually paid into the municipality's account after that particular auction. But in terms of how they arrived at that 8 million, because we did not even have the list of the stock. I'm talking about the livestock that were in that particular auctions, how much was each livestock sold for. So those details were not available. It was only 8 million that came into account, and they then reported that this is the proceeds from the sale of the livestock, and that money was then accrued to the municipality.
But I would have I would have thought that you would have told the council, the existing council at the time, here is this problem, the mayor and so on, and they would have assisted you to get the information, because it would have also been their job to try and find out, because they must look after the interests of the municipality. Did you tell them you were having these difficulties?
Yes, Chair. I did inform the mayor by that time that, because there were some letters that I also
was Mr.
wrote.
Mudau?
It was
Was that
Mr.
Mr.
T.J. Mudau. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told him that I'm having difficulties in getting that particular information from the accountant who was part of this particular trust. So I did inform, but I don't think the mayor could get, because I think his name is the accountant, if I'm correct, Chair. It was Mr. Jakwaya. He was just a very difficult person who did not want to cooperate and did not want to give any information.
And you didn't get much support from the council and the mayor to try and get to the bottom of this?
No, I had indicated to the mayor, who then told me that he'll also try from his side to try and check how he can get those documented. But I must be honest that at the end, I ended up not getting anything from Mr. Jakwaya.
Okay, all right.
So
Thank you.
the 8 million rand is the only amount that you received from this trust when it was dissolved in 2011?
Yeah, that is the only money that was paid into the municipality's account subsequent to that particular auction that was held. And I must indicate and place it on record that none of the municipal officials were part of that particular auction. If I'm not mistaken, when I was going through the records, there was an Afrikaans article that was actually placed where the details and the date of the auction was placed. It was just in that Afrikaans newspaper, so you could see that it was actually not open for everybody. But yeah, we got 8 million, but as to whether this is really the amount that accrued to the municipality by then, I can't confirm, because that was supposed to have been confirmed through audited financial statements.
Well, it's very strange, because you say the trust had been established in 1993. So by 2011, you were close to 20 years of its existence, and therefore there should have been a lot of documentation relating to the activities of the trust over the 18 years or so that it had been in existence, and what money it was bringing to the municipality as well, and financial statements and everything, because it was a council trust. It was accountable to the council, to the municipality. So there is the question of what were the different councils that were established over the 18 years? What were they doing about finding out what was happening about this trust? And to the extent that the position was that the farm had been leased to this trust, or to whoever it was leased to over this period, where was the rent going? Was there rent that was paid? And to whom was it going? And what were they doing with it? Because from what you say, it looks unlikely that it was coming to the council. You didn't pick up anything that showed that any rent was paid to the council?
No, nothing, Chair. And even that time, I engaged the municipal manager at that time, just to try and check whether there were regular financial reports presented to council on the performance of that budget, because yes, it was 100% owned by the municipality, so surely there was supposed to have been regular records presented to council, even giving details in terms of the movement of the livestock and whatever else. So those records should have been there. But Chair, when I joined the municipality in 2011, there was none of those. But it was my obligation as a chief financial officer to make it a point that any asset that is in the municipality is properly accounted. Why I requested those particular details. Yeah.
And the Auditor General hadn't picked it up, as far as you know, over the years?
Chair, I think I'm just talking out of correction because I was not there. In fact, when I joined the municipality, there were consultants that were appointed by the municipality. They were assisting in the preparation of the financial statement. I then also asked them that particular information and I couldn't get it. I also asked the Auditor General by that time as to whether there is anything that they have, and I couldn't get anything else, Chair, because it was bothering me that you cannot have such an important asset of the municipality that is operating. And I mean, if you check the period exactly when it was operating, and yet there are no records, even indicating whether dividends and anything. So it was really a concern to me, Chair, but all went in vain, so I couldn't get any information.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, the matter should not rest there. Steps should be taken to see whether there may be any corruption involved in regard to that, because the Commission has to look at issues of corruption. So steps should be taken to look at that.
We have noted it.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Moremi, was there any assets that remained when the trust was dissolved? Any assets that remained and that were handed over to the municipality when this trust was dissolved?
No, the only thing that remained was the farm itself, which, in terms of my estimation, valued close to almost 30 million. So it was only the farm. Remember, the livestock and all the implements, everything was sold. So the only asset that remained, and which was in our book,
Yes.
was actually the farm, total farm measuring 4,439, as I've indicated.
Yes. This 4,439 hectares, it includes the town itself and the township, the Friede Thembalihle Township.
Correct, Chair.
Yes. And then what did you do then with this farm after the dissolution of this trust?
The records that I obtained from the municipality, because I was not a municipal manager by that time, is that after the dissolution of the trust, somewhere there in 2011, then the 3,368 hectares of the 4,439 was actually leased to, sorry, Chair, was actually leased to 4 farmers. So there were 4 local farmers. I must indicate, Chair, that there were also 4 white local farmers. The information is given here in terms of the number of hectares and everything that was leased. So that was leased, and the period was from October 2011, and then the expiry date was the 30th of September 2013. And the annual combined rental that was paid by these 4 farmers
Yes.
was 958,880. So that was the money that was paid to the municipal for 3,368, but that was the annual rental that was paid, because actually it was paid in 2 tranches, 1 tranche in March and then the other one in September.
Yes.
So it was just the rent, the annual rent
That was the
just
annual
under
rent.
1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. We have had evidence from Mr. Khadebe as well as Mr. Fento regarding the lease of this farm that was now entered into between the municipality and the Free State Province. I'm interested in the first meeting that took place on the 12th of June 2012, according to Mr. Khadebe. Would you please just, according to Mr. Khadebe, during this council meeting, this meeting was hijacked by the officials from Department of Agriculture, as well as the MEC at the time, Mr. Mosebenzi Zwane, and when they came to request that they be given this farm. Please take us to what transpired in that meeting.
Okay, Chair, it was exactly on the 12th of June 2012. So that is exactly the date. In the morning, the delegation from the Free State Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, led by Ntate Tabete, then visited the municipality. We had a planned, pre-planned council meeting for that particular day. So they came at around 8 o'clock, and then they requested to do a presentation to all, just before the council started, to all the councillors, but there were also some local business people, including some local farmers, who were already been invited. I assume that the invitation were then prepared by the department. So it was in a boardroom, and all were there. And that's when Ntate Tabete presented. It was in a PowerPoint presentation that he made. Chair, if you can allow me, I've given an extract of whatever was in that presentation, because we never had the hard copy.
Yes.
It was just a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes. So before you go there, Mr. Muremi, the farmers that you referred to, was it the beneficiaries, these upcoming small farmers at Friede, or was it other farmers?
No, at that time there was no mentioning of any beneficiary. It was just the local farmers, because remember, this was like a huge project that was going to be established in Friede. Remember, Friede, or Phumelela municipality, is a very small rural municipality in the Eastern Free State, very small, with almost very low revenue base. So this particular project, as it was covered in the presentation, was going to be one of the massive projects in Friede, which was going to create more jobs. So obviously, there were going to be a need for some local farmers to also supply raw milk to the dairy farm. So that's why they were now part of this thing, because it was going to benefit almost the community and the farmers by that time. But there were no mentioning of the beneficiaries at that stage.
Okay, then go ahead and go to where you wanted to refer to. Is it what was recorded on the meeting on that day? It appears on page 8 of this of your affidavit.
That is, I must indicate, that is on my original affidavit.
Yes.
Page MM04.
Yes.
Yeah. If you allow me, Chair, I would like to read it thoroughly.
Yes, do
Yes.
so.
During the month of June 2012, the team from the Department of Agriculture, led by the head of
I'm
department...
sorry, I thought you were reading from page 4.
From MM03, Chair.
Oh, from page 3. Chair.
Okay,
It's
page-
the last paragraph,
page
5. Yes.
We just say page 3. MM is your initials.
Okay, Chair.
Okay. All right, yes.
During the month of June, the team from the Department of Agriculture, led by the head of department, Mr. Tabete, visited the municipality and made a presentation about Friede Integrated Dairy Project to Municipal Council, community and commercial farmers. The purpose of the presentation was to create awareness about the project and to request the municipality, I'm referring to council if I'm saying to avail the farm granulast for the operation of the dairy farm production facility. In his presentation, the HOD quoted the following, I quote, "The MEC for Rural Development and Agriculture at the time, Honorable Mosebenzi Zwane, in his departmental budget vote for the financial year 2012/2013, resolved that a dairy and a processing plant will be established in Friede, and a specific amount will then be set aside for the project. The project will be one of the biggest in the country, as the department will be partnering with a company from India called Paras, and thus attracting foreign direct investment to the province. The project during its initial phase will employ 500 permanent employees, and the total investment in the property, plant and machinery at the initial phase was estimated at around 500,000. The project will place Phumelela in an international map and will have massive economic spin-off for the local and the neighboring farmers. I'm referring to the emerging commercial farmer, who will provide raw milk at an attractive price." That's the end of
Yes.
the background.
Thank you. So that's that's part of what Mr. Tabete quoted as having been said by MEC Zwane at the time during his budget vote.
Correct, Chair.
Okay.
Yes. Mr. Muremi, this presentation, how was it presented to you? Did you get any packs to consider? How was it done on that day?
Chair, let me explain that. When a council meeting is convened, it will depend whether it will be a special council meeting or an ordinary council meeting. You will then have items that are submitted to the Speaker and the Mayor, and then the agenda pack will then be distributed to all the councillors, which was exactly what happened. But unfortunately, this particular item was not in the pack that was distributed to the councillors. As I said, the HOD just came with a delegation. Unfortunately, it coincided with the date of the council, and that presentation was then made. And I can confirm that I can't recall even us having received the hard copy to that effect. It was just a visual PowerPoint presentation. So what I've summarized here is some of the salient or the most important aspects that were actually covered in the presentation. But it was not a part of the item or the pack that was given to all councillors before.
Yes.
And but was it on the agenda, this presentation?
It was never on the agenda, Chair.
Yeah.
I'll
It
indicate.
was just accommodated.
It was just accommodated. That's why you'll see in one of the documents that when the council took that particular decision, it was covered under deputations and interviews. You know, normally when somebody comes and he makes a presentation, so that's exactly how it was covered. But it was not part of the agenda pack.
And this was a council meeting.
Yeah, it was a council meeting. In
Yes.
fact, what happened is subsequent to the presentation, those local farmers and business people, they all left. And then council had to then continue with its own business.
Yes.
And that particular matter was flagged or captured
Yes.
under deputations and interview. And there were resolutions that were passed by council, which were then supporting that particular project. Yeah.
So, excuse me. So it would not be correct to describe that meeting as a community meeting. It was a council meeting which was attended by community members.
No, Chair, let me explain it like that. There was a planned council meeting for that particular day. Remember, Mr. Tabet and his delegation, they just came, because it was the first time that I saw them there. So they just came in, but before the council meeting could start, that's where in the same council chamber, that's where this presentation was made. But those who were in attendance were the councillors, because they were there, you know, for the council meeting. They were there, the local business people and the farmers. So presentation was not made, not in a formal council meeting. It was just like everybody there, and then that's why after that everybody left and the council continued.
So it might be correct to call it a community meeting which took place in the council chamber.
Correct, Chair.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Thank you. What bothered Mr. Hadebe is that there were certain resolutions that were taken in this meeting. In fact, according to Mr. Hadebe, these type of requests, I'll refer you to the relevant page. These type of requests ought to have been made formally. They ought to have been given packs before the meeting, and this matter should have been on the agenda for consideration, because following this meeting, which he described as the act as the council meeting was hijacked by the Department of Agriculture and the MEC, you made certain resolution. He attached this document. You also attach in your affidavit. It's on page 8 of your original affidavit. Chair, this was the document that was not very clear on Mr. Hadebe's bundle. I will swap that annexure with this one, because this one is more clearer.
Yes, but I think go back to what you are saying to Mr. Moremi about what Mr. Hadebe said, so that it's clear what you,
Yes.
whether you want him to respond to anything or what you are saying.
Thank you. Yes, what I want you what I'm saying to you, Mr. Moremi, is that Mr. Hadebe said the Department of Agriculture and the MEC hijacked the council meeting and made this presentation. What do you say to that?
I'm not going to use the word hijacked, but as a councillor, Mr. Hadebe was correct. And as I've indicated that when there's a council meeting scheduled, you need to have items, you need to attach everything or supporting documentations for each items, and then you need to give the bundle to the councillors almost 2 days before the council meeting. So that's exactly the normal operation of council. But as I've indicated, we were not aware of that particular presentation that will be made when we are even doing the agenda. So it just came in the morning. That's why the council meeting had to be a little bit delayed so that we could allow the presentation and then council took place afterwards.
Yes. And why
Well,
were
maybe hijack might not be accurate because we don't understand that the councillors were objecting or protesting. It looks like they had no problem with the Department of Agriculture making a presentation.
Understood, Chair. I was just following from Mr.
No,
Khadebe's
that's
words.
fine, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. My question to you, Mr. Moremi, why did you allow this to happen? If the Department of Agriculture hasn't given you prior notice or made a formal request that they wanted to do this presentation to the council, why did you allow this to happen?
Let me explain that the municipality had 15 councillors. I just want to go a little bit back. The municipality had 15 councillors. And Councillor Khadebe was a councillor that was representing the Democratic Alliance. But there were 3 councillors, so it was him and the other 2 councillors. And they were all in attendance at that particular meeting. And I can confirm that all the councillors, in actual, after having listened to the presentation, including those 2 councillors of the DA, were happy. It was just a normal concern that Mr. Khadebe raised. But at the end, the decision was taken unanimously, and it was recorded as such in the minutes of council. As to how we have allowed the presentations to take place, it's a bit of a difficult question, but as I've indicated that it was a request by the department when they were there that they must do a presentation. And remember, I was also not alone.
You probably had no power to say
I had no power to say no.
So
Yeah.
that's an unfair question to him.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. And could you please then give us what was resolved in that meeting, the meeting of the 12th? It's also recorded on page 8.
The resolutions, there were 3 resolutions. Resolution 1, that council note the content of the reports on this item, that the project be accepted and supported, that the administration, this administration now is referring to me as an accounting officer and the team, and the HOD of Department of Agriculture and Rural Development must then draft resolutions that will then be adopted by council before the end of next week. So it was under deputations and interviews, and those were the resolutions. But obviously, then the department was then expected to then draft the resolutions that will then come properly so that it then becomes an item of the agenda for that particular meeting that took place.
Okay. Did that happen? Did you receive those resolutions?
Yes, on the 21st of June, 2012,
Yes.
the HOD Ntatetabet emailed me those draft resolutions, which were then incorporated into the agenda of the next meeting.
It's at the meeting of the 3rd of July.
The meeting of the 3rd of July, yes.
Yes.
Well, let's talk about what you call a resolution that was taken on the 12th about this project. Was this resolution taken by the council now sitting as a council after the Department of Agriculture had left, or was this a resolution of what maybe can be called the community meeting? So who took that resolution? Was it the council sitting in a council meeting? Was it a resolution of those who were at this community meeting?
Chair, the resolution was taken by the full council. As I said, there were 14 councillors who were in attendance. After the community meeting, everybody left, then the meeting started. So it was a council decision taken during a formal council meeting on that particular day.
Yes. Now, it strikes me as quite strange that the council should be so quick to make such resolutions on something that about which they have just received a presentation and no documents, nothing, but they quickly make a very important resolution without, it seems from what I've read in your statement, without really much of any questions from them, without them looking at how viable this would be, without them looking at what the financial implications could be for the municipality in regard to this. Are you able to say anything to me? I'm just concerned that this is quite strange. They don't ask for time to consider it, reflect on it, and say, we will come back to you, or anything like that. That seems very strange to me.
Chair, you're correct. You're correct, because it was then resolutions that were taken based on the PowerPoint presentation that was made. And as I've indicated, not even any councillors in that meeting, even myself, had a copy of that particular presentation. Ordinarily, as I've said, there should have been a formal request from the department to the municipality, either to me as an accounting officer or to the mayor through the MEC in that time, where there was then background given, and then there will then be this presentation, and then we'll then have some other reports like your feasibility studies and everything that were done, so that then councillors could then apply their mind before a council meeting and go through that, and then as a result take resolutions. But as I've said, Chair, it was resolutions taken just based on the presentation that was not done. That was done by that time.
Do you know whether any councillors may have been involved in previous discussions or meetings with the Department of Agriculture, or Mr. Tabete or Mr. Zwane, that may have given them enough information to be able to make this kind of decisions prior to this meeting? Do you know whether they may have been involved in any meetings which would have given them enough information to make such a decision at this meeting?
Chair, I am of the view that the mayor, Mr. Mutau, could have been aware of that particular meeting, because people can't just speak in your territory and they come and make a presentation, and there were even people that were invited before without that. So because if you read under the deputation, it says the speaker gave the mayor the platform while awaiting for the MEC to arrive to then welcome the delegation. So my assumption is that there may have been some discussions prior to that with the mayor, but I think it will be correct if the mayor himself can confirm to that. But from that particular engagement, it was not like something that is failing you. But to me, it was like a surprise, because that's the first time that I started hearing about this particular project.
I know that you had been in the municipality for a short time, or a year, or just over a year. But do you know whether the way that this matter was dealt with was the way other matters were dealt with by the council? Was it normal for somebody to just come, make a presentation, and a very serious decision is taken there and then, without any proper discussions, reflection, and consideration of implications for the council, and where necessary, without getting advice from appropriate professionals to assist the council to make a decision? Do you know whether this was the norm, or whether this was not the norm?
Chair, this can't be the norm. I think I've indicated exactly what was supposed to have happened. This can't be the norm. There should have been more information provided and engagements undertaken, maybe after the presentation. I think it was maybe too early, but it was councillors that took a decision. It may have been too early for councillors to pronounce on that particular matter based on the presentation. I think ideally more information could have been properly sourced, so that then the proper meeting with more information, so that then council can then apply its mind. But yeah, it was definitely not an ordinary way in terms of how decisions are made by council.
Yes, thank you.
You then deal with the resolution that followed after the draft resolution that you received. Please just take us to what was said in this resolution. It appears on page 14 of your original statement.
Page?
Page 14, 1-4. I would like you to read the salient points to the record of that resolution. First of all, where did you get this resolution, draft resolution from?
Chair, these draft resolutions were prepared by the Department of Agriculture. I've indicated that I received an email from Tate Tabete on the 21st of June, where this particular draft was attached, and then I printed it out. So it was resolutions that were developed and prepared by the Department of Agriculture for tabling to council.
Yes.
Can I go through?
Yes, go through this. This draft resolution then was then tabled on the meeting you had on the 3rd of July, is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
Yes, and would you please then go through the salient points of this draft resolution?
The heading there says Friede Integrated Dairy Agri-Business Project. And then there's a resolution there of 3 July. The resolutions allowing the Department of Agriculture and Estina Pty Limited, stroke Paras Dairy Company, to use the municipality land to develop a dairy production facilities in Pumelela Local Municipality, Free State Province. The Department of Agriculture has requested that the Pumelela Local Municipality adopt a resolution allowing for the ownership and operations of a dairy production facility by Estina Pty Limited stroke Paras Dairy Company within the municipality-owned agricultural land, because doing so will promote and stimulate economic growth and development within the municipality. And whereas the council believe it is in the best interest of municipality and its citizens that dairy production facilities be allowed to be developed in Pumelela by Estina Pty Limited stroke Paras Dairy Company, and whereas the council take note that the municipality will hold a stake of 4% shareholding in the business for the use of the municipal land, which will be used for the development of infrastructure of different forms in the municipality. Now, therefore, be it resolved that for the purpose of this resolution, the term dairy production facility shall be defined as follows. Dairy production facility means the land, structures and related equipment used for the housing and breeding and raising and feeding or milking dairy cows. The term includes within its meaning only such agricultural land as is necessary for proper disposal of liquid and solid waste and for isolation of the facility to reasonably protect the confined cows from exposure to disease. Be it further resolved that for the purpose of this resolution, the term agricultural land shall be defined as follows. Agricultural land means land suitable for use in farming. Be it further resolved that Estina Pty Limited stroke Paras Dairy Company are hereby permitted to use the 4,400 hectares of agricultural land located in Pumelela Municipality for use in conjunction with a dairy production facility. Be it further resolved that this resolution is applicable to all applicable laws. Be it further resolved that the municipal manager is directed and empowered to publish this resolution, and this resolution shall take effect 30 days after the final publication, unless a valid petition in opposition to the same is filed in accordance with the municipal bylaws. In witness whereof, the above and foregoing resolution was unanimously adopted on the 4th day of July 2012. That's what this document reads.
Yes, and what then happened to this draft resolution? You tabled it on the 3rd of July? Was it adopted by the municipality?
As an accounting officer by that time of the municipality, because if you read the first paragraph that says the Department of Agriculture has requested that the Phumelela municipality adopt a resolution allowing for the ownership and operation of a dairy facility by Estina Pty Limited.
Yes.
There's a process that must be followed by the municipality, especially when a municipality wants to have business with a private company. They call it a public-private partnership. But in this instance, there was mentioning of the word ownership. So there's no way that a farm, a property of a municipality, could then just be transferred or even leased to, or transferred to the private company, Estina Paras, without that particular process has been followed. So in that particular meeting, in my capacity as an accounting officer, I then advised council not to adopt these particular resolutions. I think there is a council resolutions that were adopted, and on the 26th of June, I then communicated to the then head of department, Untitled, about the resolutions that council had taken. A municipality is not allowed to own shares in a private company. So had I done that, then I would have compromised the municipality and the community by giving away such an important asset to a private company. So I then advised council that we can't adopt these draft resolutions as they are.
Yes. And this draft resolution is talking of 4,400 hectares. You have told us that the farmers were renting about 3,300, I can't remember the exact, but about 3,300 hectares, the rough estimate. Where does the 4,400 come from?
As I've indicated, these are the draft resolutions that I received from the Department of Agriculture. But yes, indeed, that was not, because remember, only 3,368 hectares of the 4,439 was the one that was actually being rented out by the municipality. So there was no way, because when you talk about 4,400 here, it then included that the whole town of Vrede and Tembaliche will then be also given away. So, and remember now, there are some housing development extensions that are taking place, because then the moment you give the whole farm away, I mean, how will the municipality then be able to do those expansions? So the 4,400 hectares was, but in the letter that I wrote to the HOD, dated 26 July, I did indicate to him that the correct hectares that may be made available for use is only 3,368, not 4,400.
Yes, is that the letter that appears on the next page, page 15, dated 6 July?
Correct.
Yes,
Correct, Chair.
thank you. And you're saying that this draft resolution was then not adopted by the council?
No, they were not adopted by council.
Thank you. Then what happened thereafter?
Well, you referred to, you said on the 26th of June you wrote to Mr. Tabete, but I wonder whether you meant July, because the meeting that you have been talking about was on the 3rd of July, isn't it?
Oh, correction, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
It was on the 6th of July when I was communicating the resolution of a council meeting of the 3rd of July.
Okay.
My apologies, Chair.
Okay.
Yes. So, Chair, the letter is on page 15 of the bundle. It's dated the 6th of July.
I've got it. Now, I was concerned about what he said,
Thank you.
not what is in the letter.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, Chair. Would you
But
then...
I'm sorry, while Ms. Butel is looking at that, during the meeting of the 12th of June, was anything ever said why it was so urgent that council should make any decisions about this project? Why was everything being rushed like this?
Chair, what I can recall, and that was also covered in the presentation, is that apparently the department or the delegation from the department, prior to that particular meeting of 12 June, had apparently had a visit to India on the basis of the agreement that was signed between the government, the Free State government and the government of India, where these particular engagements and everything were done. And the agency was therefore, because remember there was an expectation that there will then be money coming from abroad through paras that will be invested. So I think the agency there was all about having this project run. But Chair, as to why there was such a pressure, I can't. I think that's the letter that I can actually confirm. Yeah.
Well, it's quite strange. I think yesterday I had evidence of how according to Ms. Forey, who was Deputy Director General in the Department of the Provincial Treasury at the time, how the CFO of the Department of Agriculture was pressurizing them to issue a handwritten check for 30 million rand, and it was not clear why there was such an urgency. It was a Friday afternoon, and she, according to Ms. Forey, wanted that check now, or latest the following morning, which was a Saturday. And it's not clear why there was such urgency. So here, in regard to this meeting on the 12th of June, again, there is a council meeting scheduled with its own agenda. People from the Department of Agriculture come in. They are not on the agenda from what you have told me. They are allowed to come in, make a presentation. After that same meeting, same day, the council makes very important decision to go along with this project. And it makes one wonder what was so urgent about things relating to this project. But you have said what you know in terms of that meeting of the 12th.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Moremi, then on paragraph 9 of your original affidavit, you talk about the meeting that was arranged for the 17th of July, the meeting that was arranged by the mayor, Mr. Mutawu, that took place at the municipal premises. Could you please take us through that meeting? It's on page 4 of your original affidavit.
Chair, if you may allow, let me just bring it in more perspective.
Yes.
And on record in terms of exactly what happened. I can still recall exactly what happened. On the 17th of July 2012, I was driving to the office. It was just around before 8 o'clock on that day. I then received a call from the Director General then in the office of the Premier, Mayor Elsabi Rockman. She was the Director General at that time. What she said to me is that, Mr. Moremi, I just want to make you aware that there will be a delegation from India who are interested in investing in Frede that will be coming to have a meeting with you and the mayor. In the event that there is a need for you in terms of needing some legal advice, because remember, Phumelela is a very small municipality, low revenue base, although it is supposed to pay for its own costs. In the event that there is a need for legal advice, don't go to private lawyers, pay a lot of money, inform me, then I'll make it a point that I refer this matter to the state law advisors. When I say state law advisors, I'm referring to Mr. Fenter and Ms. A.J. Tira. So that's exactly what the DG actually then told me to do. And yes, indeed, the delegation arrived on that particular day. It was not a big delegation. It was a gentleman by the name of Ashok Nayaran. Yeah. It was Ashok Nayaran, and he was accompanied by the lawyer, Mr. Skalkvik. So those were the two that came. I believe that the Ashok Nayaran was the one who was actually representing the investors that are coming to partner with the department.
So did you know this Mr. Ashok Narayan? Was the first time you saw him on that day?
No, it was the first time that I saw him that day. The same as Mr. Skalkvik. So those were the two faces that I saw for the first time that day, yeah.
Yes, because we have had the evidence of Mr. Fenter that Mr. Narayan was the advisor to the former Premier, Mr. Ace Mahashule. He was appointed in February 2012.
I was not aware of that particular one, Chair.
Yes, then proceed.
Well, I see that in paragraph 9 of your statement, Mr. Nayaran, Ashok Nayaran, and Mr. Johan Skalkveik are said to have been representatives of a new venture called Zaina Investments Pty Limited.
I'll come to that, Chair.
Is
Yeah,
that
it's
okay?
correct.
Yes. And then you talk about a local businessman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, I'm trying to get hold of this, of the agreement. I think is
She will help
18.
you where to find it if you haven't found
page
it.
18. That is the agreement of lease entered into between the Pumenela local municipality and Zaina Investment Pty
Oh, okay.
Limited.
I'm sorry. I think you must bring the mic a little closer to you.
Okay.
Not too close, but just a little bit closer. Yes, that
Okay.
should be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it is an agreement of lease which was prepared, which the Pumenela local municipality and Zaina Investments Pty Limited, trading as Mohoma Mobun Dairy Project. So that was the agreement that the lawyer Ntate Skalkveik had, and it was brought to me for me to sign it. And in that meeting, then the mayor, Mr. Motau, was there as well in that meeting.
Yes.
And then a local businessman called Opa Franz Mukwena. Opa Franz Mukwena is just a local businessman who was also part of the community when there was a presentation done on the 12th. So he was there. So both of them joined the meeting. But none of them said a single word because it was me then who was engaging both Ndate Ashok and Skalkveik
Yes.
about the content of this agreement.
Who was Opa Mokwena representing in this meeting? What was his role in this meeting?
As I said, he's just a local businessman, so he was just there. He was not representing anybody else in that meeting.
Why was he in this meeting? Who invited him?
He just came with the mayor, and then they both joined me. But as I said,
Yeah.
there's little that he actually said.
Yeah.
But he's a businessman that we all know in that
He
particular
obviously had
business.
an
Yes.
interest in
Yeah.
the topic.
Yeah.
Yes, and then what happened? This agreement came prepared by Mr. Skalvik and Mr. Narayan.
Yeah. As I indicated,
Had you seen it before this meeting, this agreement? Had you seen this agreement before this meeting?
no, that was the first time. They
Yes.
brought it in
For
a
the
hard
first
copy
time.
for the first time.
Yes, okay.
The intention thereof was for me to then sign it on behalf of the municipality so that they can then take back and then have the other people sign there afterwards. So what I did, I requested that I be given an opportunity to go through this particular contract, which they allowed, and I did. And when I was going through this particular agreement, I think it's page 20. That agreement spoke about the 4% shares, ordinary shares that will be issued to the municipality. The municipality was going to be the lessee. And then there was a shareholders agreement. That clause, I was not happy about it because it says a shareholders agreement to be concluded between the lessor and the lessee within 3 years after the effective date. So, I mean, you can't sign an agreement now, but then you only have shareholders agreement after 3 years. So I was not happy with that particular clause.
Yes.
I was also not happy with clause 3.1, which said this lease is for a period of 99 years, commencing on the effective date and terminating on 99 years. I've just had an experience of another 99 years that were cancelled in 2011. Now here comes another 99 years. So I was not happy with this particular paragraph as well.
Yes.
And 3.2, which says the lessee shall have the right to renew the lease period for a further term to be mutually agreed upon in writing by the lessor and the lessee prior to the expiry of the period referred to above. I was also not happy with paragraph 4.1, which said there shall be no monthly rental payable by the lessee to the lessor. 4.2, the lessor will receive shares in the lessee as being the agreed upon rental for the So there was no indications of rental being paid. So there was no way that I could, and the shares will not be transferable. So those were, and then the 4.5 was also a concern to me because it says the lessor will only be entitled to the payment of dividends in the leasee after the lease becomes profitable. So this is a new entity. It might be profitable after 10 years. So you can't just be given, you'll get dividends when the entity becomes profitable. So those are some of the concerns that I raised with both Ndate Nayaran and Ndate van Schalkwyk.
Well, this is quite strange and quite concerning. At the meeting of the 12th June, was the name of this entity that was now going to be a lessee ever mentioned?
Not at all, Chair. That time we were only aware of Estina stroke
Paras.
Paras. Yes, sure.
So now on the, this is now what, on the 17th?
17th of July.
You are in a meeting with Mr. Schalkwyk, who is a lawyer, it seems, for this entity, Zaina.
Yes, Chair.
And Mr. Narayan Ashok Narayan, who appears to represent this entity.
Yes, Chair.
You have never heard about them before. I don't know if you heard about Narayan before.
No, as I said,
you have never heard about them.
No, I've never heard about them.
They come to you,
Sure.
You are the accounting officer. They already have an agreement that has been prepared without your involvement, without any discussion, and they expect you to just sign. And they are coming with the mayor. What is the mayor saying in all of this?
No. In that particular meeting, Chair, I did indicate to the mayor that he must allow me as an accounting officer to interrogate this con. So I didn't want anybody else to say, no, sign it, we'll take it first. So I said, I'm an accounting officer. Let me apply my mind on this particular thing. So the mayor was there, but I was very decisive.
But I'm concerned also about the fact that the mayor should know that you don't know anything about this entity. You don't know anything about an agreement that is to be signed with this entity. And he brings somebody into a meeting where the expectation from this person is that you should sign. And this is the kind of thing that I would have thought that the mayor would have wanted to know himself. And maybe he knew. You are the one who just didn't know. But
Yes.
one would have thought that if he knew enough about this entity, prior to this meeting, he would have had a meeting with you.
Correct,
To
Chair.
brief you and tell you what was going on.
Correct, Chair. In fact, the expectation was that I must sign as an accounting officer. And then I should not worry, the mayor will then take it to council. So I said, no, it doesn't work like that one. I can't sign an agreement. The mayor doesn't represent council, so I can't sign an agreement, so I'm not going to sign it. And then I made a copy. I said, no, go back with the original. Then that's where then because there was an undertaking from the Director General that if I need any legal assistance, I must consult with her. Then that's where I said, no, I'll have to go and then at least then get an opinion on this particular. But even before requesting for an opinion, as an accounting officer, with those particular provisions or clauses, it was straightforward that that agreement was not any agreement that I could have signed on behalf of the municipality.
But this meeting, the way it happened, was there an arrangement in advance that there would be this meeting and what it was to deal with that you knew about? Or did these people just rock up with the mayor and said, let's have a meeting?
Chair, let me explain like that. They came, because I was just in the office by that time, just arrived in the office. They came, and then just almost 4 or 5 minutes, then the mayor came. So came and then be part of the meeting. So it's not me then who went to the mayor and said, can you come and be part of the meeting? So they came with this particular agreement, then the mayor joined me. But absolutely, I was not aware of this particular meeting. I was not aware of this particular contract. What clicked in my mind...
So you had no scheduled meeting with these people?
No, it was not a scheduled meeting with this meeting.
They disrupted your plan for the day?
Yeah, as I said, I was lucky enough because driving to the office, I then got the call from the Director General that there is this delegation. Besides that, I had no clue anything about people that will be coming to my office. I was just going there into my office just to go and do my job, yeah.
Yeah, it's just concerning that the mayor seems to be party to this expectation that people can just come to the accounting officer with an agreement, and the expectation is that he must read it now and sign of something like this. Yes, anyway, you ask for time, and you are given time to look at it. But even that, I mean, I would have said, you people go away. If you have any request that I consider this, we'll arrange another meeting. Leave the agreement. I would have sent them away.
Yes.
But you did not sign this agreement?
No, I didn't sign it.
Yes. Tell us about the events that followed. In your supplementary statement, you talk about the emails that you received from Mr. Nayaran and Mr. Skalvik. That appears on paragraph 9 of your supplementary statement. It's on the page 3. I'm sorry, Chair, they've numbered it starting from number 1. So it's on page 3 of the supplementary statement.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Yeah, as and when I was raising my concerns on some of the clauses of this particular agreement.
How much time did you get to go through it, more or less?
Chair, that was just a quick...
just a quick look?
Yeah. That's why I was just going, I didn't go through it, so I just quickly...
You picked up concerns.
Yeah. But as and when I'm picking up those concerns, I was raising them.
Oh, they were sitting in front of you?
They were sitting in front of me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as I was raising them, Mr. Nayaran Ashok was actually making notes of those issues that I was raising. So he was actually making note. After the meeting, he said, no, it's fine. I'll go back and discuss the concerns that we have on this agreement with the stakeholders. I didn't know who were the stakeholders. But then on the 18th of July, the following day, I then received an email from Mr. Ashok.
Yes. That email will appear on page 37, in the middle of that page. It's the one that is printed in black, Chairperson.
Page?
37. It's towards the back of this document. It's right at the back, behind the supplementary.
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, okay.
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm misleading the witness.
Yeah, I think if you say the page number, that should suffice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chair, if you allow, can I read this particular email
Yes,
for record?
Yes.
It was an email from Mr. Ashok Narayan. I received it on the 18th of July, 2:14, I think, 14 minutes past 2 in the afternoon. And it reads as follows. Dear Sir, it was addressed to me, and then Mr. Johan was copied there. I don't know who is this Walemsa. There was another person that was also copied there in this particular email. And it says clarifications on lease agreement issues. He said, many thanks to yourself and the mayor for the time spent with us to discuss the proposed lease agreement.
I'm sorry. I thought Ms. Buthe said page 37.
Yes, page 37 of the supplementary statement.
Well, are there two pages 37?
Yes, there
In
is
the whole
one.
pack?
There is one from the original statement. They then paginated the supplementary statement from page 1. Maybe they should have continued.
Yeah, so this is going to cause confusion.
I understand.
Why did they, if it was going to be in the same file, why did they have to start a new numbering?
I'm sorry, Chair. That we received this this morning. It was very late for us.
And the
even to
problem is that
rectify this.
once the witness deals with it on the basis of a certain numbering, if you change it later, it won't it won't accord with when one reads the transcript.
Chair, if I may just take 5 minutes, I can do it by hand, just to avoid confusion and continue, because it's not a lot of pages.
Yeah, okay, let's
Thanks.
rather do that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Moremi, this needs to be sorted out so that we don't have problems.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll
Thanks, Chair.
adjourn for 5 minutes. We adjourn.
All rise.
8, that is written in black now. It's the fourth last page.
Okay, I've got it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think he must start afresh about identifying the email now that we know which page it is
Thank you.
on.
Mr. Moremi, there is the email that you received from Mr. Narayan. Chair, I would like to spell Narayan to record. It's N-A-R-A-Y-A-N. You got this email on the 18th of July at 2:14 p.m. Is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
Yes, and you wanted to read this email to the record.
Correct, Chair.
Please go ahead.
The subject there is clarifications on lease agreement issues. Then it reads as follows. Dear Sir, many thanks to yourself and the Mayor for the time spent with us to discuss the proposed lease agreement yesterday. A few points that were brought to the table yesterday and which I would like to clarify after having discussed with the stakeholders. 1, the shares being issued to all shareholders, including the municipality entity, will be ordinary shares and not preference shares. 2, the shares will be held in a trust by the shareholders of ZENA or nominees of the municipality till such time as the municipal entity is formed. 3, the 4% was calculated based on the available shares after allocations to the BEE beneficiaries and was not based on any commercial value. 4, on the rates and taxes, this should be paid for by the municipality as the owner of the property. The municipality is getting a 4% stake in the business in lieu of rentals. 5, the lease is being contemplated as a rent-free lease. 6, the term of the lease should be 99 years. 7, if possible, the municipality should try and relocate the existing tenants instead of transferring the lease to ZENA Investment. Regards, Ashok.
Yes. Upon receiving this email, what then did you do?
My reply is on page number 90. It starts from page number 97.
Yes.
Before you go to your reply, just to go back to the meeting of the 12th as well as the meeting of the 3rd of July, 12th of June and 3rd of July. So the council was making the decisions that it was making on the 12th of June and on the 3rd of July in circumstances where there were leases in existence affecting the same farm, relating to, I think, did you say 4 farmers, or were those leases no longer there?
Those leases were still in existence. Let me just get my mind correct, Chair.
Yes.
I know that there were engagement, but that's, because that was in 2013, the engagement with the farmers, On the 12th of June and the 9th of July, Council took that decisions while the farm was still being leased to the 4 farmers, because the contract of the 4 farmers was expiring on the 30th of September 2013, Chair.
Yeah, so they rushed to make all these decisions in circumstances where actually, even if they wanted to go along with the project, they would have had to first sort out issues with the existing tenants.
Correct, Chair.
And this was never discussed at the meeting, at the 2 meetings, as to how can we make these decisions before we sort issues out with the existing tenants. That was, or was it discussed?
Chair, if I'm correct, in the letter that I addressed to Mr. Tabete
Yes.
on the 26th and 3rd of July, I just want to check where those letters are here.
The letter for the, you addressed on the 26th of June.
Yeah.
It should be on page, no, sorry, page 9.
Of the original.
Yes, in fact, we only have one page 9 now.
Okay.
Page 9.
Yes, Chair. I wrote that letter because I was communicating the status quo at that time.
Yes.
And Chair, if you may allow, I can quickly read it for record.
Well, you don't need to read the whole letter. You can just make the point or read a particular portion that relates to the point you want to make. And remember that my question relates to what the position was as at the 12th of June 2012, as well as at the
3rd of July.
I think you said 3rd of July, that meeting, whether in those meetings anybody said, but how can we make this decision as council when there are tenants and we haven't talked to them as to what we are going to do, because we have obligations in terms of the leases with those tenants.
Yes. Maybe you should start where, on the 3rd paragraph, we say, I must indicate that this firm.
Yes, Chair. I said, I must indicate that this firm, exactly what you are saying, Chair, that I must indicate that this farm is currently leased to the following local farmers, and the lease agreements commenced on the 1st of October 2011 and expires on the 30th of September. Then I've mentioned those 4 farmers. So here I was indicating that while we are in this process, let it be noted that there is still an existing agreement with the farmers and the municipality.
But I understand what you are saying on the 26th of July. I'm asking whether somebody at the council meeting of the 12th of June or that of the 3rd of July ever said, how can we make these resolutions of making this farm available to somebody else when at the moment we have tenants on the farm and we have obligations?
Chair, as far as I know, that was not done, because if that was done, then it would have been captured in the resolution of the meeting of the 12th of June. So it was not there. So nothing was actually mentioned that time that there is actually farmers who are in this particular farm.
And as I understand the position, certainly at the meeting of the 12th, it was mentioned that there were tenants on the farm. Somebody mentioned that. So all the councillors were aware of it, or were they not?
They were aware, Chair, correct.
That they were tenants.
Yes, Chair.
But they go ahead and make these decisions with no regard to how this would be done at a practical level and whether it would be legal.
You are correct,
And I
Chair.
go back to the question, what was the rush?
No, you are correct, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Then, upon receiving this email from Mr. Narayan on the 18th of July, what did you do?
The same date, on the 18th of July, it was around 18 minutes past 4, roughly an hour and a half just after I had received his email.
Yes.
3:03 p.m., 3 minutes past 3, 18 July. I said, hello, Ashok. That's from page 97 to page 98.
Yes.
Hello, Ashok. I take note of your feedback from the stakeholders summarized below. I also want to inform you that I have requested the state law advisors and National Treasury to give us opinions on both legal and compliance aspect of the proposed lease agreement. I have copied both the National Treasury and the state law advisors representative to take note of clarity provided below by the stakeholders, and I'm sure they will take that into cognizance while formulating a formal advice to Phumelela.
Yes, I could see that on the very same day, you also copied Ms. Rockman.
Correct.
Yes. Tell me, Ms. Rockman, was this the first time that you had communicated with her with regards to a particular project, or was it someone that you normally spoke to with?
As I've said,
Yes.
my conversation with Ms. Rockman
Yes.
was specifically on that date of the 17th of July, when she then informed me that there will be this delegation coming. So the emails and everything which was sent into the state law advisors, I was copying her as well, because in the same page 97,
Yes.
even though she did not reply, she replied, it was on the 18th as well.
Yes, but late in the afternoon.
Yeah, late in the afternoon. She said, just got back from Tabanchu where we were doing some work at Motlatla Intermediary Schools for Mandela Day. I personally doubt whether you'll be able to justify a rent-free 99-year lease agreement and be responsible for
I'm sorry,
payment.
where are you reading from now?
From
Page 97.
Page 97,
Oh, still 97, okay.
Yes.
on top.
I personally doubt whether you'll be able to justify a rent-free 99-year lease agreement and be responsible for payments of rates and taxes, while the municipality is allocated 4% shares, which is not based on commercial value, while at the same time losing a guaranteed income from the current lease agreement. Let's see what National Treasury and the state law advisors advise. So that's her response.
Yes.
in what Mr. Naran has covered in the email below.
As at the 17th of July, when you got this delegation that rocked up at your office without any prior arrangement, and you heard for the first time about this entity Zaina, did you assume that this Zaina represented Paras or was a Paras entity? Or did you say, where does Zaina come in here now? We have been told of Estina and Paras. What's going on?
Chair, I must be honest, I did not answer that, but you are correct that from the 12th of June, because that was a month after, we were all talking about Estina and Paras. So as to how then the new entity was then established, because if you read the agreement, it says Zaina Investment Trading as Mohoma Mobu. So as to how that...
Two names you know nothing about.
Two names I know nothing about, Chair.
But the mayor also, on the 17th of July, doesn't tell you anything about the connection between, if there is any, between this Zaina and Estina and Paras.
No, he said nothing, Chair.
Yeah. And up to now, nobody had explained that connection as at the date of this email, 18 July 2012.
No, nothing, Chair, except the fact that as time goes on, then that's where then Estina came after. So I don't know exactly what happened to the disappearance of Zaina, but subsequent to that, then it was then Estina. Dairy, yeah.
Yes. But basically, on the agreement that was presented to you for signature by Mr. Narayan and Nayaran.
Yeah, Narayan and Mr. Skalvik.
Yeah, and Mr. Skalvik, they wanted you to make the land available to them for 99 years.
Correct, Chair.
They didn't want to pay any rent.
Correct, Chair.
They wanted the municipality to pay the taxes and rates.
Correct, Chair.
They called that a lease without a rent.
Correct, Chair.
I've never heard of anything like that. And they basically wanted to use this land for free for 99 years, and even with regard to the 4% shares, they were saying, you know, the municipality will get them when dividends when there is profit, wherever that is, whenever that would be. That's what they presented to you.
You're correct, Chair.
And of course, you picked up all of these things.
Yes, Chair.
What you didn't say in regard to the meeting of the 17th is, what was the attitude of the mayor himself when you raised these concerns? Did he get surprised that this is what was being presented to you? Did it look like he was not surprised? He knew, he had looked at the list, he knew about this. There was no problem as far as he was concerned? Or is the position that you couldn't tell what his reaction was?
At that time, Chair, I was sitting like this, and Mr. Narayan and Skalkvik were like facing me. The mayor was just next. But remember, as I said, I indicated it in the beginning that, Mayor, may you please allow me to engage the contract and then also present. So I did not expect even anybody else to can say, do this. Yeah, because that was a very serious decision that I were to take. So I had to apply my mind thoroughly. So he was sitting next to me. Unfortunately, I didn't look in terms of exactly the phase, whatever. Yes, yeah. But he was part of that meeting.
But did he, after the meeting or at any time over the next few days, talk to you and say anything like, I was shocked that these people, this is what these people want to do, or anything like that?
No, what he said, Chair, is that he actually appreciated the braveness that I displayed and the fact that I refused to sign the agreements, but then giving reasons why. So that's what we discussed afterwards, yeah.
So he expressed appreciation for
He expressed appreciation for my braveness. Yeah.
Okay. No. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the 7th, I wanted to understand your communication with Ms. Rockman. Before the 17th of July, 2012, have you ever had any form of communication with Ms. Rockman?
Not at all, Chair.
So this was your first time you spoke
Yes,
to her?
that call that she made in the morning, that was the first time.
Thank you. And then let's then move to whether the advice that you got from the state law advisors. Just summarize, you don't have to read it, the whole of it, because Mr. Fenter has already dealt with it. It appears on page 39.
Okay.
So you can just say the gist of the advice was ABCD.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, the advice from the state law advisors, they were actually in agreement with me that the issues that are raised, those clauses in the agreement are correct. But then they went further and indicated the specific provisions in the legislations, specifically that talks about the system, that talks about if there was going to be an agreement, the process that must be followed. So in a nutshell, they actually agreed with my thinking and my reasoning. And it was on that basis that they advised me not to sign that particular agreement.
Yes. In that you couldn't, as a municipality, you were not allowed to hold shares with on a private company.
Correct, Chair.
Thank you. And following the advice that you received, you deal with the advice that you received from Mr. Fenter after he had a meeting with MEC Zwane and the HOD on the 1st of August 2012. Please take us to that advice. You also don't have to read the whole thing, but what you understood that advice to be saying.
Chair, from what I've observed then, it appears that immediately after I had received that legal opinion from Advocate Ditira, then on the 23rd of July, there were then some engagements now between the department and Mr. Fender, who was actually more senior at that particular time. And it then culminated into what then he had to tweak and amplify some of the conditions of some of the clauses in the legal opinion of Advocate Ditira. And I must mention is that subsequent to that particular legal opinion of Ndate Fender, there was then a proper, so to say, a lease agreement that was entered into between the municipality and the department. That is the agreement that was also prepared by the assistance of the state law advisors. And what I did, I then took all these two legal opinions plus that particular agreement to council, so that then council can then give me a fresh mandate and allow me to sign this particular agreement. And there was a resolution to that particular effect. That agreement was basically in the best interest of the municipality, because it was very clear that the department is taking over the existing agreements of these four farmers, and they are now making an undertaking that they will then pay whatever that I was getting from those particular farmers. And what was supposed to happen is that subsequent to the 30th of September 2013, we're then supposed to have then entered into another agreement with the department for a particular period to be determined, and the rental thereof, because the department will say every year there will then be some escalation, so that at least there's more benefit to the municipality. But I must indicate that we never had any agreement or addendum that extended that particular period, except the contract that at a later stage I will refer to, which was signed on the 12th of December 2012.
Yes. So the agreement that you signed is the one that is appearing on page 47. That was the agreement between the Free State Provincial Government and the municipality.
Correct, Chair.
Yes. And in terms of that agreement, you had 1 year lease. You were leasing the land for a year to the municipality, to the provincial government.
That agreement, when I signed it,
Yes.
it was on the 12th of September 2012. So remember, there was already an existing agreement with the farmers, which started from the 1st of October 2011. So what it says, it was just that the department is then taking over that particular, because what happened, Chair, which I must also indicate, is that
Yes.
there was an engagement with the four farmers subsequently, where then, and the Department of Agriculture was the one, the database was then leading that particular delegation, where then the farmers were then requested, because of the urgency of this particular project, and say, we cannot allow the contract to continue up until the 30th of September, because we need to establish this particular agreement. So the farmers were then, after those engagements, they had to then bring back the 30th of September to the end of February. But because they had already incurred cost on the land and all these things.
Yes.
I mean, take it to February the following year.
2013, correct, Chair.
Okay.
Because there were already costs that they had incurred. There was then an agreement that the Department of Agriculture would then reimburse them over and above paying the municipality 1 million. Yeah. So that contract, which I signed on the 12th, was only for a year up until 30th of September 2013.
Yes. Were you paid by the provincial government?
No. We did not get payment. Remember, as I said, that the payment from the farmers were paid twice a year, which was March and September. We did not get the money from the department by then. There was a letter that I wrote to the HOD of Agriculture. I think it was around the 15th of March, where then I reminded him that, remember, we've signed an agreement, you've undertaken to pay the municipality, but as said,
This is now 2013.
2013, March 2013.
Okay, for 2012, the four farmers continued to pay and paid for the whole year?
Correct, Chair, up until end of February
Of 2012?
2013.
Oh, 2013.
2013,
So
yeah.
for 2012, the farmers
No, for
paid
2012, they had
in
already
full?
paid, yeah, in
Yes.
full, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
And then the department had to start paying in March of 2013.
Correct, Chair.
Okay.
But that never happened. There was no payment that was made. I had a number of engagements because, Chair, I later then became the chief financial officer. And then there was another new municipal manager who was appointed. But there was also a letter that I prepared myself as a CFO, dated 9 September 2013, which was signed by this new MM, where I also indicated to the HOD that it is now September, which is almost the end of the contract, and we have not yet received the payment. And then I attached the
Well,
invoice
let's
that...
get the dates first right
Yeah.
of when you ceased to be with the municipality and you joined Treasury.
Yes.
I was still in the municipality.
Did you change hats?
I changed hands,
Oh,
Chair,
okay.
from a municipal manager to a CFO.
Oh, okay.
I think that was around July 2013.
Is that an upward, sideways, or downwards movement?
No, I demoted myself. I requested to be demoted, Chair.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Then that letter of the 9th September was then signed by the new municipal manager, and that was also a reminder to the department that they still have not yet paid. I then left, but through my engagements with the now current municipal manager, it appears that there was a payment that was done, but I don't have records. It may have been done maybe subsequent to me joining Treasury, but they indicated that there was a payment that was done by the department.
So, but by the time you left the municipality, to your knowledge, no payment had been made.
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Muremi, you left the municipality in February 2014, is that correct?
Correct, Chair.
Yes. Were you aware of the province intention to, I don't want to say expropriate, but to transfer this land from municipality to the provincial government?
No, Chair.
Did you at any stage learn about this transfer?
I think, if correct, Chair, we'll then have to go to that particular agreement that I signed on the 12th of December 2012.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That will then give clarity on the questions that you are
Yes,
asking.
you do make reference to that agreement on your supplementary statement. Please take us to how it came about that you signed that agreement.
Correct, Chair?
Where is the agreement first?
It's attached as
66.
it's the first
Page
annex.
66. It's page 66,
Page
Chair.
66, yes.
Thank you. Yes, how did that come about?
Yeah, Chair, I must indicate, because this was also covered by Advocate Fenter.
Yes.
It was around the 12th of December 2013 when I then received the agreement from the HOD that Tabet. That must then be signed, because remember at that stage indicated that this agreement is important. The department had already incurred cost, and then we had to at least sign this agreement to at least protect the interest of the department. I then read the same agreement, and I had specific concerns on some of the clauses of that particular agreement, even though it was an agreement between the municipality and the province.
Yes.
So I then sent that particular agreement again to Mr. Fenter.
Yes. But you sent it after you signed it?
No, before I signed it.
Okay.
before I signed it, because you'll see his letter. He indicated that he received it on the 12th. I only signed on the 14th.
Yes.
So he then replied and indicated that this particular contract is in contravention with the one that I had already signed, which was the one up until 30 September. I think his opinion is attached somewhere else there.
Yes, his opinion is attached, and he's also, it was also attached to his affidavit. In brief, he said this agreement did not comply with what was resolved in the council. Yes. Tell us then what happened to this agreement.
Correct, Chair.
Yes.
And that particular feedback was also provided to the government by myself, because by that time I had regular telephone engagements with Mr. Tabete.
Yes.
But then he said, this agreement is very much important. Because remember, if you read the clauses of this agreement, it is where the municipality is ceding its right and titles to the to the provincial government, actually, through the department.
Yes.
So then I had engagement with Mr. and he said, Mr. Muremi, this contract is so key and you must sign it. And I said, but I can't sign a contract that did not serve before council. And then he indicated that no. We have already spoken to the mayor. He doesn't have a problem, and he will then give that particular consent for you to sign it. And then,
but the mayor's not council.
yeah, I indicated that, Chair, that the mayor is not council. But they said, in fact, I said, if that is the case, can we then have an undertaking by the mayor with that particular commitment before I sign the agreement? And I must indicate, Chair, that in page 72,
Yes.
maybe I must read the last part of that particular
Yes.
consent, Chair. It says, it is on that background that I, T.J. Motau, Mayor of Phumelela, do take note and access to the contents of the extract above, and hereby authorize Mr. T.M. Muremi, Municipal Manager of Phumelela, to sign the land use agreement and its related documents thereto on behalf of council. The granting of permission or authority to the municipal manager to sign the land use agreement will be presented by me in the next council meeting for ratification. Chair, as you have alluded, the mayor is not representing council, and in fact I had some discussion with him prior to that, where I made him aware that there is a consent letter that he must sign, but he must take note that he is not council, expecting that if he then refuses, then at least I'll be covered. But you'll see the date there, it was signed on the 13th of December. And it was only then, on the 14th of December, that I then signed that agreement with Mr. Tabet, who was then representing the Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
And again, this time, were you told what was so urgent about this?
Chair, the only thing that I was told there, because we had disagreement and everything, especially for the mere fact that the state law advisor said this contract must not be signed. But it was when the defender said, if you don't sign this agreement, we are now on the verge where the investors won't be able to. Remember, there was a commitment that Estina will bring in money. So if you don't sign this agreement, we are now facing a possibility where the investors may not come and invest. And that will then have almost failed the whole project. And the municipality, the department by that time had incurred costs. So that was the motivation or the rationale behind that particular agreement, Chair. But I signed it on that particular basis, but I'll come to what subsequently happened,
yes,
which I was not aware of here.
Okay.
Yes. So you said it was that the Fender who said the investors will withdraw. Is it Fender or Tabete? Just correct that?
No, it was the HOD, the Tabet.
Thank you.
About the agency of us signing this contract and the consequences of it not being signed, because then it would have then failed the whole project at all. Yeah.
But again, you are just told about this, but you are not given indication that this was the deadline. We are now close to a deadline, or what the deadline is. You're just told it's urgent. If you don't sign now, the investors might pull out. But you don't know where was the planning for all of this thing? Why are these things always brought at a time when you are supposed to have no time to reflect properly and you are supposed to just sign?
Yes, Chair, but as an accounting officer, I was very much cautious that I don't just sign without even though
Reflecting, yeah.
without the proper processes. But yes, that was exactly what was communicated to me, that this contract is urgent.
Yes. What then have you since learned that followed you signing this contract?
Yes, Chair. As I said, I was not aware that subsequent to me signing this agreement, at the end, the farm will then be transferred to the provincial government. And as a result, the department and Estina entering into a 99-year lease agreement. It was during that time where the Mail and Garden were, I think I was at Treasury between 2014 and 2015,
Yes.
where the Mail and Garden had indicated that the municipality has actually transferred the land free of charge to Estina. So that's exactly how it was reported. And I mean, by that time I was the accounting officer. There was no way that I could just allow that particular. It was a negative image. So then I took it upon myself, even though I was not at the municipality, saying, no, let me rather go to the DIS office and go and ascertain the ownership of this particular farm. And it was only then, Chair, page 74, no, from page 73.
Yes.
These are the documents that I received from the DIS office. But you'll note there, Chair, that in page 74, that document says notarial lease. In page 75, Chair, when I was reading this particular document, in page 75, you'll see there, preamble A, that the whole farm 44395122 were then subjected to this notarial deed. So it was not 3368 that I've spoken about. And Chair, the reason why I said I only learned that this agreement that I signed may have played a role here. It was in B, where it says, if I read it, it says, and whereas the Phumelela local municipality and the Free State provincial government, through its Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, entered into an agreement of cession and assignment dated 14 September 2012 and signed at Bloemfontein, in terms whereof all the Phumelela local municipalities' rights, title, interest, and obligation in the leased premises were ceded and assigned to the Free State provincial government through its Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. So that's exactly where I sat now. But this particular clause is actually in relation to that particular agreement. And in a nutshell, Chair, what happened is, if you read the agreement, I think, if I may just emphasize important paragraphs, is the paragraph 3, page 77.
Yes.
And Chair, I must just refer you back to, remember that Zaina investment agreement that I was expected to sign, which also had this 99 years. So when I was reading this notarial deed, that was registered on the
18th of December.
Is it January 2013? Yeah, somewhere. On the 18th of January 2013, that's when this notarial deed was then registered by whoever lawyers that were acting on behalf of the department then. And then clause 3, which is 3.1,
Yes.
it reads as follows. This lease is for a period of 99 years, commencing on the effective date and terminating 99 years later. 3.2, the lease shall have the right to renew the lease period, or the lessee shall have the right to renew the lease period for a further term of 99 years, to be mutually agreed upon in writing by the lessor and the lessee 6 months prior to the expiry of the period referred to in clause 3.1. The lessee and the lessor, Chair, is actually the Department of Agriculture and Estina.
Yes.
Or the two of them?
Yeah. If you check the page 77, the same page 77 just above, it says 1.7.1. It says the lessor, the Free State Provincial Government through its Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and the lessee was Estina Pty Limited. So in this particular case, the lessee and the lessor was between the Department of Agriculture, and I must indicate that at that particular time I was absolutely not even aware of this particular agreement, that now the department has now then entered into a 99-year lease agreement with Estina, which is the same thing that I was actually disputing on that agreement of Zena investment that I signed.
Yes.
But you signed an agreement with the provincial government as the municipality, is that right?
I signed the agreement with the Department of Agriculture,
Yes.
in my capacity as the municipal manager, and Mr. Tabete as the HOD for the Department of Agriculture.
Ceding the municipality's rights to the Department of Agriculture.
Correct, Chair.
And then subsequently, the Department of Agriculture leased the same farm to Estina.
Correct, Chair.
Chair, in fact, in this document, it's not just the farm, it's the entire
It's the
Friede,
entire
including the
land.
township and the town of Friede.
The entire
Correct,
town.
Chair. Correct, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, I could see it's now 1 o'clock. I just
Yes.
want to check if there's anything that I've left during the break.
Just
and then I'll
check.
wrap
I
up
would like
the
us
collection.
to finish with the witness so we can, we don't have to come back after lunch.
Thank you. So, Mr. Muremi, but the advice that we have gotten from the state law advisors was that you shouldn't sign that agreement. You signed it based on the consent that you received from the municipal manager, Mr. Mutaung.
From the mayor,
mayor.
Sorry,
Mr.
the
Mutau.
mayor, Mr. Mutaung.
Correct, Chair. As per the letter that is attached here.
Yes.
But also because of what Mr. Tabete said to you, namely that if you did not sign, the investors would pull out.
Correct, Chair.
Those were the two things that made you sign.
Correct, Chair. But, Chair,
Yes.
maybe in closing, because when
Why didn't you say to Mr. Tabete and Mr. Mutaung, but the state law advisors say it would be wrong to sign this thing?
No, that was evident, because remember, Chair, when the state law advisor gave that particular opinion, normally what he does, he was sending it both the department and the municipality. So even the mayor was aware of that, and that's why I said when I called him and made him aware of these things, I was just cautioning him that be careful when you sign that particular thing. But yes, the department and the mayor were both aware of the legal opinion from Dr. Venter.
So all three of you, Mr. Tabete, yourself, and the mayor, were aware that if you signed this agreement, that would be against the advice of the state law advisors.
I must confirm, Chair. Yes, it's correct. Yeah.
Yes. But you all decided it should be done.
Correct, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, perhaps
Yes.
what I can indicate it in terms of what is it that I've done subsequent to that. I brought this particular matter. By that time, I was at Provincial Treasury. And by that time, the former Director General, Mayor El-Sabi, was now the MEC for Finance and in Treasury.
That is Ms. Rockman.
Ms. Rockman.
Yeah.
Because I had a copy of this thing.
And she had raised some issues with one of the agreements when you were still at the municipality.
She raised an issue on that
Yeah.
Zain agreement that spoke
Yes,
about 1990s, yes, Chair.
Yes.
So by that time I was in the department, so I actually gave, I can't recall when, but it was during that 2012-13. I then gave her that copy and said, hey, let me see. I was not aware, but going to the deeds office, I've now realized that there's a 99-year lease agreement between the department and Estina. And then subsequent to that, there were then engagements again with the state law advisor, and then that then culminated into the cancellation. Remember when the department terminated its agreement with Estina around 2014.
Yes.
Subsequent to that, this 99-year lease agreement was cancelled, and I've attached evidence to that effect. The only thing now that has not yet been done but is in progress and was confirmed by the defender is that there is a process where now the land is now in a process of being transferred back to the municipality from the provincial government.
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Well, it's also important to try and establish, it's important for this commission to try and establish what it is that would drive people to doing something that maybe they know is contrary to the law, but then nevertheless they do it, you know. I mean, you indicated earlier on what the mayor said to you after you had refused to sign that agreement of the 17th
Yes.
of July. He appreciated that you raised issues and you refused to sign. That suggests that on the face of it, he seems to have appreciated that you were right to refuse.
Yes.
But here is now a situation where the state law advisors say you should not sign this agreement. It's contrary, it's unlawful. And nevertheless, you who had refused to sign the agreement of the 17th of July, the mayor who expressed support for your stance on that, subsequently on that issue, take the position that, okay, we must sign. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, or you just want to simply say, look, it's what Mr. Tabete said about the investors, and you thought that's enough to justify going against doing something that may have been unlawful.
Yes, Chair. But acknowledging the fact that the agreement was signed against the advice by the defendant, it did not sit very well with me, Chair. But as I said, you know, the agency and the investment that was going to be lost then. But Chair, remember, at that time,
with you.
yeah, at that time I was not of the view that the same agreement is now going to be used for the 99-year notarial lease. But what I did, Chair, is in one of my correspondences of the 15th of March, which I wrote to Ndate Tabet. Because if you read the opinion of Ndate Fenter, he was actually indicating that, but this land use agreement does not have a period of the session, and then it does not have an amount. So what I did in a letter that I addressed to Ndate Fenter on the 5th, Ndate Tabet, Chair, sorry, I'll just read the last paragraph, where I said, during December 2012, the department entered into a land use agreement with the municipality wherein the rights and obligation of the municipality on the farm were ceded to the department. The land use agreement was very silent on the period of the cession and assignment and does not provide for any future compensation to the municipality in respect of the use of its farm property granulast. It is on that basis that the department, through the office, that was my request, the department, through the office of the state law advisor, must develop an addendum to the land use agreement wherein the compensation and the period of the cession and assignment is clearly spelled out. So that's exactly what I did further to protect myself and say, this is what I've signed, but let me also then bring it that we need to correct this thing by having addendum. But I must indicate that that addendum was never concluded, Chair.
But I get the impression from what you have said that your attitude is, yes, I know that we went against the advice of the state law advisors. These are the circumstances in which this happened. This is what was said. And I didn't feel good about it, but it did happen. And I'm not running away from the fact that I was party to it. Is that right?
Correct, Chair.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. If I read this session agreement that you signed with Mr. Tabete, it is it's supposed to be between the municipality and the province. Why did you sign it with Mr. Tabete instead of the Premier?
Chair, remember that in the correspondence that I also had, which I was privy to, because I was interacting more often with the state law advisors, there was a time where the state law advisor provided a legal advice to the then Premier then, in terms of the Land Administration Act of whatever.
Yes, about the assignment.
Yeah, where now then the Premier then delegated the signing of agreement to the MEC then Ntatezwane, and subsequently then Ntatezwane then further delegated it to the HOD. So I was well aware that
Yes.
there is an existing delegation, so I did not have any doubt of Mr. Tabete signing on behalf of government or the department. Yeah.
Thank you. So it was based on that delegation of authority?
It was based on that delegation of authority.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then lastly, on the meeting of the 12th of June, did MEC, the then MEC Zwane, attend this meeting?
Chair, I must be honest. When the presentation was done by Mr. Tabet, MEC Zwane was not there. You'll also note it in the minutes of that particular meeting that the speaker had indicated that if the MEC arrives in the council meeting, then the mayor will have to then, acknowledge his presence.
Yes.
But he was not part of the presentation. I think he may have joined the council by that particular time, but I don't have a good recollection to that one. But I must confirm that he was not part of the presentation. It was done by Ntate Tabete, who was accompanied by the delegation from the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development.
Thank you. Chair. Oh, sorry. So the municipality, was it involved in the appointment of beneficiaries?
Chair, I must indicate that when that particular process of the identifications and what the beneficiary started, I was not part thereof. Remember, I had then leased the farm to the department. So whatever that the department did subsequent to that particular one, I was not part thereof. So I was not part of the identifications of the beneficiaries and all these things. So I wasn't party to that particular.
So you
process.
never attended any meetings with the beneficiaries?
I've never attended any meetings with the beneficiaries in Frere.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. That will be all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moremi, for having come to give evidence. We appreciate it very much. If we need you again, we will ask you to come back. But thank you very much. For now, you are excused.
Thank you, Chair, and let me also appreciate the opportunity given to me to present my evidence. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Chair, Mr. Gavashe would like to address you.
Yes, Mr. Bashe.
Chairman, as I indicated earlier, this is our only witness today.
Yes.
I would like to do a rain check on the availability of our witness tomorrow, and I'm wondering what the best way is to proceed in that regard. If we should simply come back and see you in chambers later on to confirm that witness will be proceeding tomorrow.
As we speak now, I suspect you don't know everything that you should know to be able to share with me in chambers about tomorrow.
At this point in time, not yet, Chairman.
Yes. No, it's fine. What we should do is let's be in touch after 2, but we won't come back here. Let's be in touch so as to talk about tomorrow. Just for the sake of everybody else, there is a witness who is supposed to give evidence tomorrow, but there are circumstances which may necessitate that her evidence should not be heard tomorrow. But we are only going to know later. So if there will be no hearing tomorrow as a result of decisions that will be taken later, the media will be informed through the usual channels. But if there is no communication to the media that there will be no hearing tomorrow, it will mean that there will be a hearing tomorrow, or at least that we will meet at 10 o'clock, and whatever decisions might need to be taken would be taken then. So if you receive communication, it will say that there will be no hearing. If you don't receive any communication, it will mean we will meet tomorrow, and we'll meet and then either decide then, or we'll meet and have a hearing. Is that fine with you?
That's in order. Thank you very much, Chairman.
That's fine. Okay, we are going to then adjourn on that understanding. If we don't, if there is no hearing tomorrow, it's likely that there will be a hearing on Thursday and Friday. We adjourn.
All rise.